In this lesson, we're going to bring in the doors and the window static meshes. Alright, so let's go ahead and go to the content browser, and let's go to our DT architecture because we've created individual windows and doors specifically for our doorways. And so I'm going to go ahead and bring in the windows. I'm going to bring in the top and the bottom, so hold down Control and select both of those. Left click and drag those into 17_begin and drop that into your level. So for this, I'm going to go ahead and drag those up a little bit. Actually, before I do that, let's switch this to 10. Just kind of make sure that that snaps nice and large there. And let's take the top window, and I'm going to pull that up in the Z. Okay, and I'm going to pull that up to right about here, and it's just below that window seal. And then I'm going to push it back a little bit. Now there's a little bit of a gap in there, so let's go ahead and switch our snapping to 1. And I'm going to push that to where it's closer to that window, and there we go. Okay, kind of see how that works there. And then now that we have our windows, let's select both of them, and let's position those in the window seal. Okay, so let's go ahead and push that back in the Y. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to center it up on the window seal. Okay, you may want to go to your perspective view, or excuse me, your top view. This might help out. So let's pull this over, and I want my windows to be just inside of that middle portion of our window wall. So what I'm looking at here is this beam right here in the middle. Okay, that's what we're looking at in the top. So let's hit F on the keyboard to focus in on that. So I'm putting that right in the middle of that beam there. And then you'll see that it kind of hangs over that wall. So here are both of my windows, and they are matched up right on top of one another rather well. And they look to be fairly close to the center of that wall. Let's go ahead and switch this to 5. Just kind of looking at where we're at here. Let me go back to 1. Let me push that up by 1 grid point. And we'll go to 5. Let's select both of those. Okay. And I think that's pretty close. Let me go switch it back to 1. It doesn't really matter too much. Okay, we just want to make sure that we're fairly close and it looks right. Okay, now let's take both of those windows. I'm going to hold down Alt, and before I do, let's switch this to 10. Hold down Alt, and I'm going to drag that over. And then let me switch this down to 1. And I'm just positioning that. Now, what I'm doing is I'm trying to get an equal distance between those two windows. Alright, great. So now let's go to our perspective view. And before we move on, let's make sure that we get both of those windows up in the seal properly. So let's pull that up in the Z. That looks good. Okay. So looking pretty good. Making sure that we don't have any gaps along the bottom or on the side or even at the top. That looks good. Alright, so they're going to fit in there nice and snug. Now the great thing about having these separated is that at any time, if I wanted to, I could drop one of these windows down to make it look as though one of those has been dropped down or something like that to create a little bit of variation on our level. But we'll worry about doing that a little later. Let's go ahead and select these, and we're going to duplicate those over. I'm just going to do one, and I'll let you do the other because we need to get onto that door. So the way to go about doing this, let's go ahead and switch our grid point over to 10, hold down Alt, drag that over, and then I'm going to hit E, and I'm going to rotate that 45 degrees. Now let's go to our Move tool, and I have this set to local, so that way we can just move it in the X and Y and get that into position. Now what I'm looking for is I'm just looking for that to be centered up on our window seal, and let's go ahead and switch this to 1. And I'll go ahead and I'll put that in there, right about there, and jut that over just a little bit. I think that's pretty close, so we're good with that. Let's go to our perspective view, just take a quick glance at where that's at. That's looking really good, and that appears to be in there, so we're looking good. Now I'm going to let you do the other two because it's the exact same thing, except we're just turning it 45 degrees the other direction. Now let's go ahead and bring in one of our doors. So I'm going to bring in the door for this, and let's go to our content browser. Let's grab our door frame and the the static mesh door, and let's drag that into our editor, and we're going to drop that right here on our floor. Make sure that both of those are set to 20, making sure that that is right on the floor itself, and I'm going to push that back. Now you'll notice that my door frame and my door don't really match up all that well. Now, looking at this, you can see that we need to position this probably like on the outside like this. Okay, and then I'm going to rotate it 180 degrees. Okay, because it's going to be a door that actually swings in toward us. Okay, so let's go ahead and push this back. And let's just take a look at where that is positioned. It's looking pretty good, but I'm not really happy with the positioning of my door frame, okay, on the door itself. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that. Let's go to our top view, just kind of check, see where that's positioned on the wall. And it's just not positioned properly, so let's go right about here. Okay, so an even distance around that wall. Let's take the door, and I want to position this to where the door, like this line right here, is up against this little notch, okay, because there's a little bit of a notch in the middle of the door frame, okay. So just kind of taking a look at how doors are actually structured. Now, there's a little bit of a problem. The issue that we're having is that our wall is pretty small. It's not fitting all that well. And looking at this, it looks like that may have gotten adjusted. Let's set that to 20 on that. And I don't think I have my door frame and my door centered up on that right. So let's go ahead and push that over until we have that there. That looks pretty good. And it looks like the bottom of that door frame is just a little too much. So let's take that door frame and I'm going to drop that down a little bit. Let's do something like 18. It's okay if it's cutting through that wall. Now if we take this door, we can hit E and we can kind of get a view of how that's going to open, what that's going to look like. So that looks pretty good. Now we're never going to be opening that. I just wanted to make sure that the wall is not showing through that frame. Alright, so now we have that door. What you can do at this point is take both of those, and with your E key turned on, or hit, you can turn on your move tool. And let's hold down Alt and drag out a copy of that door. And we're going to hit E to rotate that. And I want this closet to swing outward, okay, toward the room. So we're going to rotate it 90 degrees this direction. And we're going to push that in to that wall. Okay, and get that lined up there. Okay. So let's take that over there. There we go. Alright, so you'll want to go ahead and just do a little bit of positioning on those. Let's take this down to 1. I'm just going to push those around until that fits right there in that doorway. Great. Now you go to your top view. Hit F on the keyboard so you can find that. Oops, let's try it one more time. Now it looks like I've deselected that by accident. That's okay. I just want to make sure that my door and the frame are centered on that wall a little bit better. Grab our move tool. There we go. Alright, great. So now we have that. I'm going to let you do that last window and that last door. And so that should give you plenty to work with there. Alright, so now we have everything. It's looking a little funny right now. We have our checkered pattern. We have this white wall and everything. That's because we're in the unlit mode. And we could go ahead and add a light in. And what we're going to do is we're going to get into doing that right now because we've done everything that we need. We can go ahead and remove the brushes so that way those are out of the way. So let's grab that last brush and We'll delete that. Actually, let's grab all the brushes. I believe we have all of those removed. So go ahead and delete that. And I need to put those pillars in place there, but I'll do that here in just a moment. So that's all the brushes. We've got our level laid out here. Go ahead and add that door. And now what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to add in some very simple lights. So that way we can see inside of our scene, kind of get an idea of what that looks like, how to work with lights on a very, very basic level for interiors. Later on we'll talk about lighting and lighting the environment, but that'll come at a later time. All right, so let's get started with that next.